A team of CID officers slipped into an empty building and slowly made their way into a dark, quiet room in the shadows. Several cloaked figures stood inside, ready to perform a ritual designed to wake up the evil god using forbidden black magic. They whispered their words until the silence in the room felt heavy and sickening, like a shaking tremor that could snap your breath out. Far off in the dark, a young boy named Luyu watched a ritual unfold inside a terrifying dream. When the words began to rise, he woke up gasping for air, his fear tightening around his neck like an invisible rope. He grabbed his hair as he fought to stay still, staring at dim yellow light and strange drawings of monsters on his bed's table. He rushed for water and scrolled through his phone, thinking how dangerous the outside world could be. But before he even calmed down, a violent gust blew out his room. Papers, objects, and his blanket all flew into the air as if pulled by invisible hands. Shock spiked in his chest. He cautiously approached the door, saw it wide open, and felt compelled to shut it immediately just in case someone else looked at those sketches. As he stepped outside, he froze in terror before a dead body lay there, surrounded by people in black robes who charged him with no warning. Luyu sprinted back into his room, slammed the door behind him as the group rushed from the other side to try and force their way through. The floor shook so violently the whole team froze in place before his trembling voice finally cracked and called out, forcing them to stop trying. He stepped into silence, pressing against the door, his jaw tightening over the question of whether anyone had left, yet knowing that calling the special division was the only way to get them out. He gripped his phone tightly and dialed without stopping to watch the shifting shadows behind him. Countless dark hands rose up from the window, creeping shadows on his face while he reported danger. Yet no answer came back to him, leaving confusion and dread clashing inside. Then the glass shattered, and a monstrous creature crawled in, its many limbs scraping against the walls like twisted man-made spiders swollen with fury. He was hunted by a beast that saw his heart as a sacred gift and spat venomous words at him, making him feel utterly worthless. A wave of pure terror seized Luyu, leaving him standing in stunned silence as the darkness engulfed his world. He grabbed a chair and slammed it against the beast, screaming in rage as if the object could save him. The monster laughed at his futile fight, then let out a violent scream, while Luyu realized escape was hopeless before running toward the kitchen where the creature lunged right after him. He locked the door just before it smashed into the wood, rattling the hinges like they demanded he come out. His hands shook uncontrollably as he thought he'd reached the end, and there was no way out. The memories of his unfinished life crashed around him, and he even mourned that he had never married. Then a voice whispered inside his mind, calm and ethereal, asking if he wanted to live. Luyu gasped and looked around with trembling confusion as the air shimmered with divine light. A radiant goddess stepped out of nowhere, weaving itself into the broken window like pure crystal. She didn't introduce herself like a god. Instead, she presented herself as a very unfamiliar tool, having picked Luyu up to run it for her. Luyu stared blankly as the radiant woman pointed a finger in front of him, forcing his confused brain to focus on her own hidden thoughts before he could even figure out what she was pointing at. The woman, now fully revealed as System Mommy, lifted her hand and a shimmering magic aura formed across her palm. She expressed that her identity held no importance. The moment he faced was nothing more than his beginner's reward. A chest appeared before him with a sudden glow settling firmly onto the ground. The mysterious System Mommy told a story about picking 5 simple things at random from all the places and using them together so your favorite character could make whatever magic you wanted. Before Luyu could even react, a swarm of translucent system windows exploded around him. Each window showed symbols and marks he had never seen, making it hard for him to recognize them as anything else. System Mommy kept explaining that his servant's growth relied entirely on how he mixed the materials, and she pointed out that when he created it, he suddenly gained one innate ability from the monster itself. The praise made her face stiff, leaving him rubbing his cheeks while unsure whether to feel embarrassed or proud. Suddenly, an uneasy smile crept across his face as the compliment echoed in his mind, and then the door slammed with a violent scuff. He realized quickly that he had almost forgotten the danger still lurking outside. Panic rose like hot air rising from a storm as he mentally cursed in disbelief for such a strange sight. His mind was spinning with a huge question mark, wondering if he could stitch everything together at once. System Mommy said yes, but only if the stuff matched. If they didn't match up like that, it would be like throwing styrofoam into coffee, something so weird and undrinkable it wouldn't make sense at all. The thought came out as a wild idea, even though he loved it. As a powerful magic interface erupted from the air, swirling clouds of light and energy rose like a magnificent storm to meet him. He stepped into a glowing magic circle under his feet and called out within himself to summon the nameless monster waiting to be made, taking it back to offer its heart. Heed his call and obey its creator's wishes as he embraced the identity of a saint whose blessing drifted like fragrant wind across the world. With chaos in hand, he tore apart the old order and willed his first monster to birth. It became Fear Balloon 2-star, its abilities glowing with terrifying intimidation and vital healing powers that absorbed life energy like a fertile brain. The evil power granted Hellfire's access to burn foes in darkness, earning him an excellent rating despite feeling strangely disappointed when he realized he had created a servant instead of his own. Lu Yu turned on his heel at System Mommy, his frustration tight in his throat as he wrestled to understand what this new creation truly was. He sighed internally about wanting something different, perhaps a balloon with a human head instead of that scary Halloween thing floating right in front of him. Mommy offered calm approval, marking the creature not bad. But then Lu Yu felt an itch where anger had been supposed to go when a monster outside forced its way through the broken door. Its entrance carried a threatening presence that filled the room with hostile intent. When Shao-Chi stumbled back in terror, hiding behind Lu Yu, he was left stunned as the monster that had been his creation suddenly launched a massive wave of violence, tearing him into pieces on the spot. At that moment, System Mommy announced she had received an excellent grade and triggered a higher achievement reward for him. Solidify, Fertile Drain, and Hellfire Whip. He jumped at the chance with pure excitement, knowing he could now fight as well. Without hesitation, he grabbed his Fire Whip and struck the monster, sending shockwaves through it before chasing after the next challenge. A feeling so full of joy flooded Lu Yu's chest, pushing the fear away like a warm breeze, while simultaneously seeing the beast recognize him not just for being strong, but because he had become the true source of his own strength. Lu Yu thought back and looked at System Mommy, asking himself again whether he really was one thing. The monster lunged at him before he even realized what was happening, claiming that only the awakened would fight back to protect his sacred mission. The wind whipped through the forest as Shao-Chi darted between Lu Yu and the looming beast, weaving a thick rope from her hand to bind it tight around the monster's throat. Shao-Chi managed to save Lu Yu by proving his own worth, which made him feel incredibly proud as the beast fell into a frenzy of panic and bewilderment. Lu Yu slammed his hand down, sending a blinding flash of fire that sliced directly through the beast's form and cut it in half into glowing ashes. A violent scream signaled the end of a special event where a system notification cheered him for his twisted spider venom sac labeled as rare grade 1-star before he could process it. A distant shriek echoed desperately to call for more help after someone shouted about another monster. Lu Yu leaped out from behind a shadowed wall and stared down at the chaotic chaos below, where dozens of monster-obsessed beasts surged together into a frenzy. A citywide storm of chaos ensues, as citizens scramble to hide under their balconies while giant spiders claw at the sky and shake every building in calm panic. One brave man curls into a slumber, terrified that he will never see his family again, begging silently for help. Another citizen stares up at the monstrous spider clinging to its own home, staring with eyes full of confusion as the special rescue team vanishes from the screen. Watching everything unfold, Lu Yu realizes that even when Kong City's automated defense system should have acted instantly, nothing is happening. It felt like the silence in this computer room was too quiet for someone like him, which made her wonder if the whole line had been hacked to hide their voice. You know exactly what happens when a monster threatens to break through the walls. The whole city falls over, and the evil god's face drops like a stone from heaven. Beside him, Shao-Chi shivered with terrifying terror as he was swept away by the sudden wind. Lu Yu scolds Shao-Chi frantically because a 2-star monster could be this scared off. He pushes the little creature forward, reminding him that his strength far outweighs Lu Yu's own. Shao-Chi flinches and whines before stumbling, but Lu Yu insists make it all worthwhile. Suddenly, energy fills the tiny balloon-like body, and he slowly forms a confident smirk as power begins to rise. Meanwhile, the whole special division battles across the city. The soldiers burst forward as they tried to crush the horde of monsters with guns that didn't seem able to stop them any faster. Sometimes those people shout, after old Lee, waiting for the help that arrives. The chaos in the city is all Goose's fault. He mocks struggling humans with a mocking grin while proclaiming himself the Spider God's servant and sending despair through their division as his ridicule waves like storm. Meanwhile, the squad leader rushes to reorganize the battlefield, demanding that Squad 2 retreat from the skyscrapers, only to be laughed at by everyone watching from the shadows. As rank-awakened officers rush forward and unleash their skills one by one, slicing winds, erupting earth, and launching powerful bursts of strength. Their magic barely leaves a mark on Gusa. The monster laughs nervously while the officers stare in disbelief, staring at how something that has taken so many hits could still be untouched. When they finally understand why General Li Quan hasn't returned yet, their confusion grows even more intense. The fear was a heavy grip on the people, but the leader kept them all in line to stop the beast from reaching the West District. He ordered everyone to stay put while fighting for as long as they could. Gusa keeps shitting in their faces like a giant bug while they stare at him like tiny flies under the spider god's huge feet, until one officer snaps and shouts that Gusa is trying to cross all the lines between them. A blazing whip of fire slammed downward toward the monster from above, and Gusa jumped up in surprise as the flames cleared to reveal Lu Yu standing there, his face hidden behind a mask, and his Shao Qi clutched tightly while a swirling aura roamed around him. He spoke through a cold presence, denying that the creature's master was worthy of coming forward, and claiming he had nothing to ask but be told who was truly in charge. Gusa raised his anger so high it made Lu Yu feel like a giant spider, telling him he was an eternal god, but refusing to think about being just another little bug. Lu Yu laughed at Gusa's foolishness, pointing out that the creature had already turned into an insect and even stopped thinking. Gusa ordered all the spiders to eat him, so everyone rushed straight toward Lu Yu without stopping. From beneath the scene, the officer boss saw this coming danger and shouted Lu Yu to run immediately, treating him with care as a younger brother. Lu Yu stayed calm and told Shao Qi to summon that powerful, siphoning aura right away, just before everything else happened. Shao Qi let out a roar and fired a massive burst of fire that spun wildly around like a dying morning star before tearing through every enemy to save them all. The whole squad froze in terror, knowing this single shot could shatter their own world. Gusa screamed in agony as reality slammed into him. Then his face fell when he realized the truth. He was a true morning star demon before even knowing who it was. Shao Qi laughed and tightened his grip on Gusa like a lifeline, but Gusa gritted his teeth and refused to believe death came for everyone. Seeing this, the officer's boss stood frozen over the massive figure before him, overwhelmed by how powerful it was. He wondered if that strength belonged to himself or someone else, wondering whether this mysterious person had helped him on their side and therefore should be considered on his own. The officer's boss then looked up toward the building's highest point and shouted to Lu Yu, asking him to wait while he sought out a name for himself. Lu Yu stood frozen in a cloud of confusion, his mind racing with the endless questions staring back at him. Why do everyone else ask for answers when the only time anyone has asked him is this? If he had chosen to reveal himself as a special forces recruit and offered millions of dollars, would that have changed anything? He shook his head, rejecting the tempting idea right away, realizing he was just a lonely recluse who feared nothing but the paparazzi following him every day. Even worse than those cameras were the scientists waiting in the dark. If they found out he could wield powers without needing to wake up, they would surely be able to capture him for their own experiments. To protect himself from all that dread, Lu Yu simply told them there was no name and no need for one, declaring his identity as a humble member of the world. With those words said, he vanished into the shadows. The commander watched him go, thinking about that boastful statement and wondering if this stranger could see General Li. Everyone was shocked and greeted him with surprise as he hurried over to check on the spiders, wondering if anyone had managed to save them or if the rescue team had already done the job for them. The commander said he thought the threat was all clear, yet he kept telling himself the guys didn't do it. General Li repeated the description he had heard, a truth that vanished from the world and stood out as extraordinary for him, and asked the commander if there were any problems with that detail. General Li evaluated the information carefully, concluding that if the mysterious figure said what they did, considering their casual attitude toward an evil god, then the individual was very likely a taboo existence. The commander was stunned by the idea of such a thing, reacting with disbelief that it could be even stronger than an actual evil god. Lu Yu continued walking along the road, with Shao Qi floating beside him as he reflected on how eventful the night had become. Half an hour ago, he was still an ordinary person, and the sudden changes in his life were keeping echoing in his mind. He reminded himself that he had almost forgotten about the altar built by that cult group, which had not been dismantled yet. Lu Yu thought back on how Shao Qi just killed off those bad guys at the altar, but the offering stayed exactly as they were left there, and he was really worried about what trouble those people might still cause. He stood firm and said clearly that he would just continue living a good life in Hongshu City. He wandered aimlessly through the dark, clutching his bag, until he stumbled into a dusty room filled with blood-stained sheets and dust motes dancing in the light, and then paused to find exactly where he needed to be. He walked into a room filled with dead people who had tried to summon evil like him before. He told Xiaoqi that they were already gone and warned them to take their lives as peace would be restored. Lu Yu threw his hellfire whip at the bodies, blowing away all traces of what remained. The fire faded away, leaving the diamonds to catch his full attention as he watched them sparkle. He carefully picked up the mysterious stone, expecting gold, but discovering it was black obsidian. A rare talisman meant to ward off evil that turned out not to have flaws and would actually fetch a respectable price. As he walked toward a nearby statue, his eyes were immediately drawn by its sweet, faint fragrance. For in the world of stones, even a single scent can signal a material's quality on its own. The man shouted, asking the machine to pull the statue out of its base. The system let him go, letting him start pulling. With a mighty shove, he pulled hard until the foundation beneath his boots shattered right away. Lu Yu stumbled back in surprise, wondering exactly what was going on, while his friend Xiaoqi also went absolutely bonkers. He slipped through the air like a ghost because the floor had gone right out of place when the spider web snapped under its own weight. The silk tug felt like a sudden pull from deep inside, confusing his mind until he spotted that this room had been magically stitched together with another world behind it. His eyes widened wide as he watched the dark figure of Atlaksh Nakya hover right above him. He screamed in terror, grabbed his bag, and ran out of the room while screaming not to look up or at anything, convinced that looking would make him die instantly. He fell against a wall as a loud, painful roar filled his head until it was unbearable, forcing him to close his eyes completely. At that split second, the robot plummeted forward with a massive pair of scissors to sever the spider silk and declare its victory while simultaneously activating protection mode. Lu Yu froze in his seat, stunned by the sight of him fighting back. Mommy shouted as if the ground itself was cracking under her weight, and she stepped into the countdown, shouting 10, then 9, then 8, all while telling the host to stand ready for a terrifying break from reality. On the other side, Lu Yu didn't feel scared. Instead, a wild grin spread across his face after realizing the system's power was so dominant and had severed the connection between the evil god and him, pulling out the mutation from his body. Since that was true, he immediately felt safe and offered a mocking smile to Atlaksh, noting that since he'd rarely even gotten this chance, the brother should at least let Lu Yu bring back some local specialties. Atlaksh yelled in rage before a massive portal burst open in front of Lu Yu's room, knocking her system away as she finally reached the end of her countdown. Lu Yu patted her chest mockingly, realizing instantly with delight that she had been saved and returned to her own home instead. The living mommy cheered loudly for the host to jump off the cliff, confirming the hero's victory over the scary deity as they reached their new power level. A system window just called him and told him he had found something named Dalan Lanbwa, described as a little piece dropped from the Premling Bridge that a bad group of god believers carved into an evil statue. That thing could pull the Dreamland Cup, but since it was only a fragment, there might be another version of it, just one way. The system asked Lu Yu to figure out if he wanted to go face-to-face with it, and asked about the meaning of authority. Lu Yu stared wide-eyed as the strange discovery of what kind of super gambling chest it was since it could actually be empty, then asked desperately for help to check if it was made of something else entirely. Suddenly, the system window flashed a warning that this wasn't ordinary thread. It was the thread from the body of an unspeakable evil god that looked like a spider but was not one, a divine being that could not be seen directly because those who look would inevitably fall into madness. The thread possessed a maddening divine power that made even Lu Yu's fear turn to terror as he realized this deadly construct might have been waiting for him right now. Lu Yu felt shock when he found a single thread that turned out to be so powerful, thinking it might reach 6 stars, and even more. He imagined he could take away the evil god's limbs, or whatever else came next time, just to make a morning star monster strong enough to destroy a city. If he managed to find enough high-level materials as raw stuff, he wondered if he'd ever become a god again. He laughed out loud at the idea of becoming a god, trying to keep calm as evil gods lurked everywhere around him. Yet suddenly he felt his heart stop when a woman knocked on his door and asked if he could just open it up. Lu Yu sprinted over to Xiaoqi and shouted, "Oh my, the special division has arrived. Please hurry up and cover your ears." He stepped through the door to find an Inspector Ning in charge of the special team, but she didn't know if anyone else was still inside. They asked him if they could tell them about the cultists and monsters who had just invaded the room. Lu Yu stared at the gun in her hand as she held it tight, feeling like she was about to fire someone into the dark. In a rush of panic, he told everyone that the monsters had knocked on his door days before, but instead of taking them out, he locked himself in the closet and pretended he wasn't home, trying to escape the chaos. Officer Ning checked him inside, sure there were no signs of a ghost or evil god aura, so she decided he was just a normal civilian and asked if he could check his room. He said he could, and they went to inspect it. Liu Yu said the wall had been ripped open and wondered if insurance would cover the loss, while also checking if the spider monsters were safe off their own property. Ning insisted it was enough that he survived, and the neighbors next door were miserable because she told them his body was like a candle wrapped in spider silk. Liu Yu nodded along with a simple yes. Ning called to tell Zhang one last survivor she'd found on the 7th floor. No external injuries or any evil god aura, and got satisfaction from him as he thanked them for their hard work, telling her they could return to the information communication department tomorrow. Liu Yu sighed about being so tired today and complained that the company didn't hire more people normally. In critical moments, they had to split people up just to use them. The key was that they never gave any overtime pay after returning, but then there still hung a highly childish boss out carrying a yellow ball. Ning told Liu Yu her microphone wasn't off. Liu Yu stood frozen in his living room after Ning Xin rushed out of the office, his heart pounding as he tried to catch up with her before she left for a meeting. "I'm sorry," Ning shouted over the noise, admitting she had made a big mistake and was rushing off so fast it scared him. Liu Yu gasped, trying to calm down, but when he looked back at the door, he saw Ning Xin standing right there again, looking terrified. He froze, thinking about what had just happened earlier as the wind blew through his house while someone else was painting a picture on his table. "Oh no," Ning yelled, pulling her coat tighter and backing away from the door. After a horrific night of chaos, Liu Yu stayed asleep while his team fought through flames, but Xiao Qi watched from the side as a news report declared Hang City's North District attacked by spider cultists, killing 115 people and leaving 74 survivors behind. Even in half-asleep frustration about how loud everything sounded, he tried to wake up by taunting Xiao Qi with his smirk. However, he was too tired to ignore the sound or the confusion that made him wonder why he was doing anything at all. He sat up dramatically from his bed as he yawned, staring blankly past the broken wall where monsters had burst through last night, admitting guilt and wondering if anyone could actually fix it. He gathered his courage and switched on his jacket before leaving the quiet street. On that high roof in the distance, another girl watched him from her window with a look of concern as he walked alone into his ruined apartment. Suddenly, Liu Yu pushed open the door and glanced around, remembering his own job just a few blocks away. In the instant darkness, a familiar voice echoed right behind him. "Who are you?" When he turned, she jumped up and said, "Why are you here?" He told her his house had been attacked, and that he came to find out what needed fixing. She immediately asked if he was hurt. He assured her he wasn't. Then he asked if they wanted to grab breakfast together, and he smiled shyly when she nodded in agreement. They walked side by side as the shopkeeper bought 2 slices of bread for them. As they ate together, Liu Yu quietly wondered why she followed him all the way through the school day. Reflecting back on how long ago they met as classmates in high school, he realized their friendship was surprisingly short-lived. They only called each other once every few years. He told himself that being different from those classmates didn't mean they were worse people. In fact, everyone had praised her for how strong she was and how special she really was. But when he looked at his own childhood drawings as a hidden kid, the bad memories came flooding back like a storm cloud. Pushing away those painful thoughts about past mistakes, Liu Yu decided to look ahead instead of dwelling on what could have been. He remembered yesterday when he had collected extra materials from those mysterious spiders and figured out how to build something entirely new. Suddenly, a spark of pure joy hit him as he realized the moment was finally up. She smiled and said, "Okay, I'll see you next time." She stepped back in her living room after leaving the party, feeling a sudden wave of warmth in her chest as she saw the familiar photo on her phone. She blinked quickly to catch herself from blushing before realizing that someone was watching her carefully. She held firm against the urge to tell him the truth and promised never to share anything more. She slid a finger in her mouth while making a very sly smile. Before she even got fully there, she whispered that Liu Yu was inside her room, revealing how much she loved the man who lived right here, surrounded by pictures of him on the walls, pillows, stuffed animals, and posters. His discarded belongings were kept in neat shelves and drawers. She dug in her drawer with Liu Yu's jacket close by, pressed her cheeks firmly against it, breathed in every scent, and whispered his name over and over again to satisfy herself as if she were a fan obsessed with him beyond all reason. While Liu Yu walked down the street, the wind rushing through his window felt like a deep, biting chill that made him doubt what day he had spent out there. Finally, Liu Yu pulled down the door from behind and let out a relieved sigh as waves of relief washed over him. He felt the work complete while a news reporter followed his actions. Xiao Qi squatted down to play with the boy until a tired Liu Yu shoved him away, clearly signaling he wasn't hungry and needed more time alone. He realized he was forgetting something important before he even looked at the list, so he walked over to open his computer and checked every detail carefully just in time. The window flashed a warning sign, Twisted Venom, with only 1 star left, followed by another Twisted Venom. Note for 5 stars before revealing a rare 3-star version of the mutated Twisted Spider Egg, and finally the Golden Silk Sapiko, glowing from the 5th star. The list kept spinning out into mutated Twisted Spider Eggs, a Morning Star class born from that same Twisted Mother, corrupted by massive flesh energy and an ancient evil god's aura, sparking an extraordinary mutation far beyond the original plan, while keeping its star rating locked on potential rather than actual power. His eyes widened in shock as he realized that the creature wasn't just any old beast, it was a real female, and for the first time ever, he knew exactly what to expect when she showed up like this. He dug his teeth into the space of the system, and instantly came across an egg, confirming it was alive before even asking if she existed. And then, System Mommy popped out right there to confirm her presence. Lu Yu felt the question hang over his egg. Was it living or just unmade? But when Mommy System came along, she said nothing mattered at all. If you're still an embryo or a shell-less thing, you can't even change your mind. Lu Yu thought about why the little bird shouldn't be left alone, so he gently stroked Xiaoqi's head to show she was safe. He asked System Mommy if the gathered materials could help strengthen Xiaoqi. She said his host power wasn't enough for it yet, so she suggested making a new familiar instead. He agreed with her, feeling relieved that he wouldn't worry about losing Xiaoqi behind future monsters, and then ordered the system to begin editing. He grabbed the Twisted Spider Venom sack from the box and pulled out the broken pocket watch to add to his collection. The addition failed to save him, leaving him stunned as he tried to make sense of the disaster. The System Mommy gently reminded him that even though the watch was still holding onto some material, it left behind nothing more than a hollow shell tainted by blood from another ancient deity. She told Lu Yu that many gods fight each other out of jealousy, using a story about distant entities like Bang Wetter and the Lord of the Deep Sea Nightmare who had fought because their powers clashed. System Mommy added a big explanation that once his power grew, she would let him bend evil gods into friendship without trouble. For now, he kept picking up lower-level kids instead of the dangerous silk. He agreed and told us to make use of the spider egg and the Twisted Venom sack, so he started weaving them together while checking whether there were really 2 kinds of materials allowed at all. The system window then alerted him of his second familiar, the Void Shadow Spider Egg, which had been labeled as unhatched with a 4-star excellent evaluation and warned he needed 1 more month before it could hatch. Lu Yu carefully reviewed the details he was given. The Shadow Thrall spider could turn into one for every few seconds absorbed, acting like an assassin and servant at once. This power let it use its own aura to block any outside probing, while opening a personal pocket in the chest to stash whatever matter it needed. The monster truly came into being at dawn, a creature possessing far more power than he expected. He looked up in wonder as the timeline perfectly matched his strategy to uncover the depths of this new world and its conflicting factions. System Mommy congratulated him on editing that monster, telling him she had unlocked the elite editor and given him a 1/10 of the Void Spider's power with the chance to solidify 2 new skills into himself. Panicked, he reacted instinctively before his body began swelling like an exploding balloon. He felt his eyes go bright red as a warning sign, knowing instantly that the very force holding him together was about to tear him completely apart. Lu Yu popped out from his body like an inflated balloon and drifted through the sky, desperately trying to find a moment to focus on something important before his servants could break him apart again. His mind spun with the thought, if a balloon were about to burst, he'd have to let the air out through its opening. But he knew that wasn't enough, since he was no ordinary balloon and couldn't release energy via mouth or nose either. He tried remembering how balloons work, where they aren't perfectly sealed but filled with tiny pores letting air escape. But even then, at this rate, it wouldn't help before the grass over his grave would be 3 meters high. With no other way out, he made a move and shouted the dreaded Hellfire Whip as if nothing else mattered. As if something was about to explode, a fiery black whip burst from the heavens and wrapped tightly around the towering structure, casting an intense glow that seemed to burn directly into everything within. People outside stared at the strange sight with shock and murmured confusion, wondering if an evil cult was making a fuss again as Lu Yu lay calm under the fire. He had finally stopped adding more energy from his body, yet as day turned into night, Lu Yu watched how his muscles shrank and his limits grew so wide they almost wouldn't matter at all. System Mommy looked down at him with concern, wondering if he was just a fragile little thing who needed to slow the transmission even more in future adventures. Lu Yu nodded along internally, knowing that making it far slower would save his life. System Mommy gave a hard look at her powers, and she made the choice right away by spilling the selected energy straight into his very blood. She pointed out the spider's 8 tiny legs and said, "That counts as a little sever," before inviting its newest hero to join her battle. A loud knocking at the door startled Lu Yu. making him jump back as someone else entered. He opened the door to find Officer Ning standing there, and she greeted him with a smile. They talked about what had happened outside, but he didn't know anything. She asked why he was sweating so much and how he was doing, while he just said he was exercising. She walked past him quickly, insisting they check the room for something wrong. She walked through her own room and immediately panicked when she discovered nothing there. Instead of thinking it was normal, she realized the police had told her that this very house belonged to Lu Yu. She realized she had just made a mistake by calling him handsome again after she apologized for being rude. He laughed and replied about police work, because everyone should be helpful, then reminded him to stop sweating so much he could smell like sweat stink on his face since no girls really liked it. He nodded in agreement and recalled her name as Miss Ning, while she pretended not to notice that he still remembered who he was. Lu Yu locked the door after leaving, feeling a sudden rush of relief as if she's gone, only to twist his grip tight and realize Xiaoqi wasn't there at all. He kicked open the door again and saw Xiaoqi right there with Officer Ning. His heart sank instantly because he wanted that silly creature back before he got closer. Lu Yu slipped into a rabbit-filled shop where the owner was busy playing a game and casually told him to feel free to browse, which Lu Yu understood meant he could just walk by without being noticed until the boss showed up. He picked up a rabbit on his way home and immediately decided it would be Brother Rabbit that should take over. Lu Yu sat down in the shop and tried his shadow servant trick on the rabbit, which turned into a black aura that filled its belly with dark energy. Lu Yu felt happy it worked, but he was still wondering if this skill could actually turn him into a human form. Excited by the idea of a spider cult servant being easier to accept, he thought about how such an army could fight and even give massages and cooking meals for everyone. Suddenly, his excitement faded as he remembered that harvesting humans would likely mean being hunted down by the awakened ones. So instead, Lu Yu went back to testing on animals, only to find out it didn't work at all because the shadow alone wasn't strong enough to create a human shape. He asked the owner for a price, but nothing came of it. The owner rushed over in surprise and slammed his hand on the table, explaining that the cage held 13 rabbits, each priced at a hefty $100. Since Lu Yu was a big customer, the owner offered the entire cage for $1,200, making it an eye-watering deal. Lu Yu reacted to this price as incredibly expensive, but the owner insisted it wasn't, and claimed that chaos in the outside world had already pushed the rabbits up to market price. Lu Yu took an extra order by bringing in a cage full of birds and tiny white mice. His owner instantly saw him as a huge customer and offered everyone a 10% discount plus free shipping. Lu Yu accepted the deal immediately. Then, his boss began tallying up how lucky the animals were because they would eat and drink right along with him. Next, he brought the rabbits and birds back to the house using dark magic to summon shadow servants, admitting that he was doing it very wrong internally. He thought the amount of shadow needed must be enough for a servant to appear. With all his will, he called out the shadow servants. 3 shadow servants stepped out from behind the wall and stopped right in front of Lu Yu, letting him have a closer look at their terrifying forms before turning his gaze to them. Yet, as if by magic or ancient lore, something sickened deep inside him when he finally looked into their eyes. He felt weak enough to lose his balance and start to faint right away. Suddenly, a motherly figure appeared instantly, taking Lu Yu by the hand and declaring she found an unknown energy aura behind her. She immediately assessed how dangerous it was and then sent off a powerful automatic eraser. Sister Mommy knocked out the shadow servants with a blast of magic so their tiny forms could be rebuilt from the ground up, all just to stop harm from causing trouble to Lu Yu. Lu Yu stumbled back against the wall because she knew her friend was in danger, so she jumped up to grab a weapon while she felt she had finally saved herself from extinction. She realized quickly that she only wanted to become part of the dark shadow and almost swallowed it whole. The Sister Mommy crossed her arms and said, "Don't worry now, for you didn't notice the host yet," and she reminded him to stay on guard in the future when merging with certain energies, even if those energies had no malice or were just ordinary ones he got. Lu Yu carefully processed her words and realized, hidden deep inside every kind of energy, there was a being like that. Then Sister Mommy said she couldn't talk about it and told him to grow up as much as possible. Lu Yu admitted he wasn't qualified enough yet to explore the truth of this world, but wondered if staying safe was still right now when they were all in his hands. As Lu Yu looked at his shadow servants' massive hiding skills and their whispering power, he knew exactly how dangerous they were before anyone else could see them. As the group charged his front, he simply stepped aside with one motion and sent everyone flying straight into the ground. He tried to keep his head down while trying to stop himself from letting those thousands of dollars go. So when he finally did activate Hellfire's spell, he saw a strange split in reality where the creatures were separated just right for him. He looked at his math and saw that one bird-type servant was roughly 1.2 times more powerful than Zhou Yong, while another rabbit-type servant was about 1.4 times stronger. He thought, what if he cast a shadow from a tiger's back or a bear? That would make it even more powerful. But then he asked himself, why wouldn't a human shadow do the job better? He spotted how his tiny servants had shrunk, and as they slowly transformed into liquid shadows near him, he ordered them to check out the strange things around them and report any oddities right away. A note from Drake's comic organization floated by, and upon close inspection, he realized that their arrangement was actually quite clever and their intelligence must have been far greater than anyone expected. Lu Yu sprawled over his bed, staring at the ceiling while his mind wandered to new conquests. Knowing that even with a whole army of soldiers and assassins ready to kill him, he felt like he was still so far behind in the game and could never rise to a place where monsters would stop him. He felt stuck because he had strength but didn't know how to wield it, yet he desperately wanted to grasp total mastery of awakened cultivation. He knew that awakened beings were far more than mere power. They held locked secrets worth thousands of resources, and realized that if he could truly understand them, he'd unlock even more treasures. Yet, despite his desire for knowledge, he admitted Zhou Yung and the other cultivators performed terribly. They only represented those below, incapable of reaching or surpassing the legendary morning stars. The system mommy gently nudged Lu Yu toward a digital forum, reminding him why she had chosen this path. Lu Yu felt his heart skip a beat as he hesitated over the sheer volume of fake information flooding online. Did it actually help him find what was real? The system mommy offered reassurance instead, telling him to just start exploring and see for herself. It was Lu Yu's friend who used his laptop to scour the web after someone mentioned awakeners, finding dozens of riddles about what they eat, whether their heirs would ever become themselves, or if there were private forums where people could just talk to one another. He noticed questions repeating endlessly about those mysteries, wondering if any real giants existed and if even the awakened had a secret place to hide their secrets. When he saw the question, will an awakener's descendants also be awakeners? With so much confusion, he dismissed them as trivial nonsense before moving on. Lu Yu spent hours scouring the internet before his friend finally called. So their talk started with Lu Yu's friend shouting that his name, Peerless Genius, was a high-powered awakened figure who only talks about killing monsters and then said he'd get in if someone was already ranked 2. Lu Yu told himself it was all good bait, but immediately complained there were no forums on the profile. The friend got mad because admitting to being ranked 2 would have logged ages ago. So he told Lu Yu that serious status and power were needed first. Someone had to be at least a rank 2 awakened before they could post or even trade high-level stuff, and Lu Yu wondered if submitting his info would put him under military surveillance. He groaned internally over the friend's silence, and wondered if the person had caught him in acting like a pro on the awakened forum before he could reply. The friend immediately turned hostile, calling him a scammer while questioning whether he truly was one at all, even as he accused him of being an intellectual who just told stories too much. The friend stubbornly refused to let Lu Yu make a serious bluff and wanted to prove it with real talk. So instead of ignoring the crowd at night markets, he insisted that only awake people could tell the story about the city, even though his words felt like tangled bits as he tried to convince him not to reject them. He kept smiling as he pulled back the lid of the red velvet invitation, revealing only a simple word: bragging rights. He pushed Lu Yu to pay closer attention to what looked like a genuine deal before it vanished in 5 seconds. And he slammed his hand shut as soon as the friend cursed him at the end of the call. As night fell over this street, Lu Yu turned toward the bustling night market, where everyone else was wearing masks that seemed like they were made from different animals. He watched the crowd and wondered if he had been fooled, even though every person looked like they were expecting a show of power. Masks lined up everywhere from chickens to monkeys and cats, while Lu Yu, who was a rank 3 awakened, noticed that everyone was waiting for him at the night market. He activated his aura, causing the men standing behind him scream as if they were about to die because they saw something terrifying. Lu Yu knew he had tried too far to be mysterious, but when he finally made it past the crowd and asked the guard why everyone was there, the man nodded eagerly and said, "Go right in." Lu Yu asked if he had to wait in line, but the guard insisted they couldn't possibly make him wait, even encouraging him to move forward. The guard told him his boss was hospitable and ready for an old friend, so Lu Yu walked inside, believing it was smart to be strong despite knowing who to respect. As he stepped deeper into the market's bustling night scene, he watched everything with a sense of what the place really looked like. Lu Yu walked through the crowded market and saw a man proudly show off his tusks, proclaiming that they could become weapons. As he glanced over at someone else, he learned a warning: don't look too long, or you'll get mad at the boss. He stepped aside to let them pass, feeling strangely important while others kept their distance. Then he wondered how he should handle these awakened people when so many stopped for him. His eyes caught someone selling survival gear like the Guide for Surviving in the Wild, along with spiritual books on awakening and beginner knowledge. He thought those cheap techniques were enough, even though his self-control warned him against showing too much excitement. So he picked up a bottle of 5 burial corpse poison and asked about it. The seller explained it was deadly poison derived from ritualistic blood rituals targeting unjust deaths. But Lu Yu decided the smell would be enough to kill Morning Star monsters anyway, so he ordered them to pack their books for him before thanking the seller for his help. When they tried to take the books home, 2 men laughed at Lu Yu's stinginess and mocked him for buying everything without paying. One even accused him of sneaking into a mysterious world by wearing a monkey mask that could hide the scent. The man laughed out loud, declaring he had shot Zhuzhou's younger brother and threatened to tear them apart if they tried to defend themselves against him. Lu Yu smiled down at her and said, "With such a big body, I wouldn't even care." The woman behind the counter looked puzzled when asked about that size difference. Lu Yu stepped forward, offering a twisted spider venom sack to the girl, hoping he could pay it in this single coin while thinking sharply about whether those star materials were actually worth the amount. The seller looked at the item with greed and excitement, realizing it was a rare, complete extraction of venom from a completely twisted specimen, though she knew even top experts couldn't pull one intact for 100,000 spirit coins on average. Lu Yu sighed in surprise, questioning whether such an incomplete sack truly could fetch that much if he had to pay with his own star materials, and immediately felt his ability to extract be so godlike that paying was the most important thing. He cleared his throat loudly, deciding that even if she wanted more than just 1 coin for these fancy books, it would still be enough, but he wasn't ready to take on the risk of asking other conditions later. The girl reacted nervously and asked what those other conditions meant, because she only liked people. Then she stepped forward and introduced herself as Xu Xiaoqing, handing him her contact details. She declared that after accepting a venom sack, those notes belonged to him. Simultaneously, Zhuzhou arrived and ordered everyone to step aside like a commanding boss, addressing Xiaoqing with "Ku Zhuzhou, sir," and warning that the Xu family had already been there. Xiaoqing suggested he head straight to the center of the night market where the night market boss was, noting they wouldn't dare act up in that area. Meanwhile, Lu Yu asked if the Xu family were really very powerful. She told Lu Yu his father, an old master named Xu, had been living on the 9th tier for many years before declaring that calling him a Morning Star adjacent powerhouse wouldn't be enough. She warned him that although he was strong, the Xu family was big, and if he stayed now, he would be dead. Lu Yu wondered whether 2 9th tier awakened were enough to make a family, so he began walking forward despite all the tension. Xiaoqing tried to stop him, but her shadow servant blocked his path. She became tense and pleaded not to fight, begging for a strategic withdrawal before calling him Big Brother while she panicked. He thought about how he would be Lu Yu's big brother now, wondering if she had been a canine strategist in her past life. Nearby, Zhuzhou's little brother cried that Lu Yu had cut off his arm and ruined his life, so he begged his elder brother to avenge him. Zhuzhou said he already knew the truth, and turned Zhuzhou handed over money and said the Xu family was ready to pay back with extra spirit coins, but he admitted they were almost done. When Lu Yu looked at the line of shadow cutters, he wondered if it was just another weak clan like the Zus. The thought turned out that the name, Shadow Cutting Lineage, meant something else entirely, because Zhuzhou had mistaken his shadow servant for one of theirs and felt no shame in calling himself a shapeshifter. He quickly announced they were going to leave now, but Lu Yu ordered them off anyway. A man dressed like a joker then asked Zhuzhou why he had killed his own brother. Zhuzhou was terrified and admitted they had been set up by the Shadow Cutting Lineage. The joker repeated that name in confusion, while Zhuzhou explained that Shadow Sentinels were born assassins with superpowers who could refine special corpses into army guards. He described them as massive figures from the Scarlet Hand organization capable. Lu Yu accepted his invitation to play with Xiaoqing and quickly volunteered to follow him, calling himself a big shot while insisting she would go with him. As Lu Yu walked, people whispered among themselves as they observed that the mysterious yellow-robed man seemed too intriguing. Even without speaking, their chests felt heavy against them like something was pressing down on them, making it hard for everyone to breathe. They wondered what power someone of this caliber would expect in such a simple night market setting. One of them suddenly declared he could call him the Yellow-Robed King, and all agreed that his name was correct. Lu Yu got escorted into the room, but as soon as he stepped inside, Li Cheng stared at him with intense focus. Lu Yu pushed open his protective time shield, and suddenly a golden brown bee flew out from there. Li Cheng felt completely overwhelmed by that strange energy surrounding Lu Yu. Shadow swallowed Cheng whole as he tried to run, grabbing his hair while describing the golden locust blotting out the sky, something that could erase time and devour every moment of his existence before panic forced him to flee. Suddenly, blood started flowing from Cheng's mouth, and a worm emerged from it. Ghost Bear felt furious at first, so quickly he could tell his master if he was okay. But instead of fighting back, he hesitated and obeyed, claiming he followed the master's orders. Later, Li Cheng stepped forward to introduce himself as the Federal Special Division's leader, showing respect, while Lu Yu listened quietly. Li Cheng sat back in his seat and told Zhang Mei that she might just be a thief, but now he was trying to make up for the earlier mistake by promising to stay out of the bidding for the treasure and share all the information he knew. He pointed out that everyone knew the thieves had come for the treasure and promised to deliver Lu Yu immediately if he received any updates from him. Lu Yu nodded, trying to figure out what they were actually talking about, while wondering why nobody seemed to understand or speak in a way that would make sense for his own experience. He wondered internally how it felt knowing exactly what to expect when everything else looked so certain and perfect that he already knew what was coming right here. Yang stared hard into Xiao Qing's eyes while she explained how Lu Yu had brought along a mysterious girl from the night market. Yang realized the big shot was actually just a fellow traveler who shared this secret, so he took a cautious approach to his own actions with her. Xiao Qing noticed Yang suddenly explained that the humans stole their eyes and took over a caravan carrying 6,000 seconds long ago, and then asked if she knew who they were. Xiao Qing told everyone how she had witnessed a vicious gang made entirely of unawakened criminals who turned into monsters with terrifying eyeballs all over their heads. Each eye held a power equal to those of some awakened beings. After becoming these monsters, they gained amazing lifespans but were cursed by an unknown evil god and could only survive by devouring fresh eyes from their own kind, or else their bodies and eyes would rot away forever. She said that eating more human eyes made them stronger and then turn out to be one of humanity's most dangerous villains. So Yang stormed into the room in rage, shouting that these thieves deserved to die. He told Li Cheng how his caravan had been attacked by them while stealing supplies, but when they took people's eyes, their lives were ruined. Yet Li Cheng agreed and insisted on exterminating all such creatures. At the very end of the story, he revealed that among the stolen items was a dragon egg, which made Lu Yu feel like she saw the world in a new light. Xiao Qing stared at the cracked egg in her hand, wondering just how a caravan could get one without killing 2 dragons. She explained that dragons love their babies so much that stealing an egg would bring them together with the family. But Li Cheng gently said it wasn't even a pure dragon egg. It was actually a mix between a male and something else entirely. Li Cheng gently warned Xiao Qing not to underestimate a hybrid creature, reminding her of his father's status as a radiant moon rank dragon. He explained that he could feel Lu Yu sensing this dangerous phenomenon, and that holding such a rare treasure is something only an elite radiant moon rank being like Lu Yu would ever be worthy of fighting for. Xiao Qing felt stunned as she stared at the radiant moon rank, a step above her own morning star, wondering if that title meant something special about her golden locusts. She thought of how the tall man who bought hers with twisted spider venom had shown such immense power before he vanished. She wondered what kind of godlike hero he actually was, and felt like every time she saw these strange encounters in novels, it felt like fate itself was rolling to a sudden climax for her destined benefactor. Meanwhile, Li Cheng added that the caravan had been bold when they found the dragon egg unguarded, only to have run into human eye thieves along the way. The lone survivor managed to keep his vision intact by feigning death, so he could share that secret with others, hoping their greed would finally bring the thieves down. But instead, those clever eye hunters who had been waiting for a long time kept stealing fresh victims until they ran out of food. Li Cheng asked Ma Yang at the night market if anyone was missing in the nearby cities to find this clue. Lu Yu thought of how many dragons the morning stars could train and ride. Garo stepped forward, signaling Li Cheng to speak, then told him there were many eye thieves hiding among the awakened, with their leader known as Morning Star and terrifyingly dangerous. He reminded Lu Yu that level 1 of this world had little real meaning compared to that threat, while also noting that even for someone with such power, he was unlikely to be seen at a place like this without first seeing it. Lu Yu stared blankly at the man who held such power, wondering why everyone called them morning stars, without asking if they were really that person. He tried to convince himself that no one should ever know what was inside their hearts. Yet he saw that all of Li Cheng's kindness came from a big misunderstanding. If this powerful guy had learned his true strength, would he even try to kill him? He wondered too hard whether any morning star could actually block an attack at such close range. Li Cheng spoke with heavy sorrow, telling us that his spiritual energy had been badly damaged and that he was 20 years old now, barely able to move or think anymore. He said he had hoped to give up the dragon egg for a different treasure meant to break through him. But instead of hope, he felt trapped by a binding shackle that would never let him move forward at all. Li Cheng turned away from the crowd and muttered that this advice was too hard, admitting his low-level treasures were worthless to him, while higher ones were locked behind monsters. So he even admitted he'd lost faith in them. As soon as Lu Yu demanded what Li Cheng had said, Qin spoke up. "There's nothing here, something is being born, and there's difficulty where a sage might be found," offering the words like a rare treasure. The moment Li Cheng touched the box of gifts, his face turned pale as he shouted, "If you don't find something in this place, it must be hidden deep inside." Li Cheng yelled with a sudden spark of energy as he stepped forward. Li Cheng started acting crazy after losing control, screaming and crying until Ghost Bear stepped in to stop him, then locked eyes with Lu Yu while demanding to know exactly what he did to his master. Lu Yu chuckled quietly inside him, thinking about how Li Cheng seemed so weak all along, but then saw a flash of brilliant light from within where positive energy burst out like a wave before spreading everywhere until everyone knew he had finally found something real and strong. Xiaoqing jumped in excitement when she told Li Cheng about a rare event she had seen before, calling it enlightenment because he had finally freed his shackles. Lu Yu felt good thinking this happened if Li Cheng was truly so enlightened, though he immediately questioned why someone who hadn't read the whole Tao Te Ching could become an immortal after reading only one line. The bright energy then spread out to meet outside, making many citizens watch in amazement as they caught a photo of the massive power surge that shook the streets. So people asked themselves what might come out when something like that happened and realized that someone else's footage made them feel so proud that they'd show it off to anyone who was behind them before. Ghost Bear felt deeply moved seeing his master so happy and threw himself at Lu Yu's feet, admitting he had misunderstood him and been blind to greatness. He begged for punishment in any way Lu Yu saw fit, but Lu Yu ended the matter and told him that it was enough. Li Cheng told Lu Yu he had no limits to his powers, insisting that Lu Yu had already solved the yin-yang duality ritual instantly. If he hadn't stepped up, Li Cheng would have died before ever reaching spiritual ascension or touching the mid-morning star rank. Lu Yu wondered why all this strange cultivation jargon was even needed in the real world. Yet he locked those thoughts away, whispering only that Li Cheng had said if small suggestions came from Lu Yu, he'd be willing to listen for the rest of his life while staying by his side. Lu Yu felt irritated and reminded himself no one wanted a lifetime with him. As dawn approached, Lu Yu announced it was about to break and decided to go back. Li Cheng offered to escort him further, but Lu Yu declined. Li Cheng accepted this and stepped aside. Lu Yu then mentioned that there was a junior he might need Li Cheng to look after and asked him for his card. Li